We've got an important message, I think, from Tucker. Oh, sorry. An important message here from Tucker. I don't agree with everything he stands for, especially his admiration for Donald Trump. But he does seem a decent human being who wants to do the right thing. He's always opposing the killing of innocents, women and children, non-combatants. And whether you like him or not, this is an important message.
Back in April of 1994, some of the worst atrocities of the modern era broke out in the landlocked Central African country of Rwanda. To make a very complicated story short, the dominant tribe in Rwanda, the Hutu tribe, which controlled the government, had the majority of the population, for a bunch of different reasons, rose up under the direction of their leaders and attempted to exterminate the minority tribe in the nation called the Tutsis. And for 100 days, they did their best. They killed hundreds of thousands of them, more than 500,000 of them, many with machetes or burned alive or buried alive. And they raped even more than that. And not just raped, but literally corralled AIDS patients in AIDS hospitals and sent them out to rape Tutsi women and to affect them with HIV, which they did. It was horrifying. And as the details of what happened during what is now referred to as the Rwandan genocide filtered out to the rest of the world, people were stunned and nauseated by it and really bewildered that something like this could happen. Not that long after the most famous genocide in history in the 1940s in Europe. To which we all said, well, that could never happen again. Well, it did. A version of it did happen in Rwanda in 1994. But what was even more distressing and in some ways shocking was that the world knew it was happening as it happened and did nothing to stop it. And in most cases, said nothing about it, even when it was in progress from the very beginning. 4 days after the genocide in Rwanda started, a Swiss journalist in Kigali, the capital, published a piece in a French newspaper saying, I have interviewed 8 officials and there's a genocide going on in Rwanda. This ran in a Western paper and then was picked up in other Western papers, but no one did anything. So the Red Cross knew it was happening. The UN knew it was happening. There were UN troops in Rwanda. The French government knew it was happening. There were French troops there. The nation of Israel knew it was happening. Israel had been a supporter of the Hutu government for decades. In fact, it seems pretty obvious that some of the bullets and grenades used to murder Tutsis were sold to the Hutu government by the Israelis. And in fact, there's some evidence, apparently, that the Israeli government sold weapons to the Hutu government during the genocide, which were used to murder Tutsis. We say apparently because the documents surrounding this have been classified. They're under seal per orders of an Israeli court on the grounds that were they to become public, it would be bad for Israel's image globally. So the Israelis knew, and the Clinton administration famously knew it was happening, but for domestic political reasons, didn't act to stop it. So the lesson is something horrible, in fact, genocide can happen. The world can know it's happening and allow it to happen. That's the lesson. And it's a lesson that a young Harvard law student called Samantha Power thought about a lot as she was getting her degree in Cambridge. How can a genocide take place within living memory of the Second World War and the civilized world does nothing about it? Well, in 2002, she published a book on that exact question. The book was called A Problem from Hell. They won the Pulitzer Prize and all kinds of other prizes. And Samantha Power's case was pretty simple. The world cannot allow genocide to happen again. If people find out this is happening, they have to act. That's the mark of civilization. Do you stop mass murder of civilians on ethnic grounds, genocide? And if you don't, then you're not civilized. The United States, she wrote, has a moral obligation to intervene with force if it determines that a genocide is underway. What's the point of having the world's largest military if you can't at least try to prevent a genocide? Well, as noted, she was lauded for this. The book changed her life. She became one of the most famous people in the world. And in a fairly short period of time, a close advisor to then candidate Barack Obama. He was elected in 2008 and promptly made her the chairman of the Atrocity Prevention Board. You may not have known such a thing existed, but it does. It's an interagency group. It still exists. Name slightly different. But its purpose is in the name, preventing atrocities, using the power of the U.S. government to prevent atrocities. Well, there weren't many well-publicized genocides during the first Obama term, but Samantha Power stuck around. She ended up teaching at Harvard Law School, and then Biden is elected or becomes president in 2020, and she goes back into the White House. At this point, she is the head of USAID, the United States Agency for International Development. She also has a seat on the National Security Council. She is a high-level foreign policy person in the Biden administration. Well, it just so happens that during her time there, the thing that she warned about, wrote about, actually happened. Another genocide. This one took place in Gaza, the territory that Israel has controlled, formerly part of Egypt, since 1967. And shortly after the attacks by Hamas into southern Israel in October of 2023, Israel decided to murder as many people as it possibly could in Gaza with the aim of getting the entire population to leave Gaza so Israel could take over Gaza. Now, we're not guessing about this because Israeli officials said out loud, this is our plan. And then they
do. They say it all the time, like at the start, referring to the Palestinians as Amelek, quoting from the Torah or the Old Testament, saying, I think in his speech, Netanyahu, obviously speaking in Hebrew, it was translated though, saying that kill them all, men, women, toddlers and infants, oxen and camel, dogs, kill them all. And that's out of their mouths, like. And unfortunately they have that much pull in mainstream media and politics. Nobody dares speak out. Oh, he was just emotional at the time, it was a slip of the tongue, and they've repeated it many times. Google it, like look it up. This is the thing, like, it's like I've said in the past and I'll say it again now. At the start of this conflict, being a northern working class lad, I looked up to the likes of Douglas Murray because he's an intellect. You know, he went to a posh school, you know. To us, they're people who are educated. And he told us all, he still does, they're all Hamas. This is what we've got to do. We've got to exterminate them all. They're hiding under hospitals, in schools, in the back of ambulances. They're dressing up as aid workers. So we've just got to kill them all. And I was ashamed that I did believe that, like, but do more than 5 minutes of research and make your mind up, like.
Tried to do it. Two interesting things. Samantha Power, famous for opposing genocide, said not a word about this. Of course, by this point, 30 years after the Rwandan genocide, Samantha Power's view of genocide appeared to have changed. So the way to fight genocide really was to empower women and girls in the LGBT community. Fight the patriarchy. That's how you prevent genocide. But when an actual genocide occurred on her watch, as someone with a seat on the National Security Council, Samantha Power did and said nothing. She's now back at Harvard Law School, but she has actually been asked about this. You're the genocide lady, but you did nothing to stop genocide after writing a book scolding the rest of us for doing nothing to stop genocide? Why is that? She didn't respond well. I'm not here to answer questions like that, she said. You can look it up. It's an amazing exchange. What she did not say was, you're absolutely right. I wrote a book saying the civilized world can't allow genocide to happen, and then I allowed it to happen. But that's exactly what she did. But what's even more interesting is that she's not alone in this. Everybody knew from the first week after October 7th that Israel planned to commit genocide, traditionally defined genocide, targeting a population because of their bloodline and trying to exterminate or move them. Everyone knew this because Israel announced it. Twice in October of 2023, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said out loud in a public speech, the Palestinians are Amelek. Amelek, a reference that many in the West didn't get, but everyone in the region understood.
Obviously, I'm just reacting to this, and like you say, there you go, like, and it's like, oh well, why would you take Tucker Carlson's word? Look it up. The speech is still online.
It's a reference to 1 Samuel 15. The first verses in it, which you should read, because it tells you a lot about what Israel's doing now. But those verses describe God's command to eliminate a tribe called the Amalekites. And not just the draft age men, but all of them, including children and infants. All of them. Kill all of them. Destroy all of their property. Slay all of their animals. This is God's command. So when Benjamin Netanyahu describes the Palestinians as Amelek twice in the first month of the Gaza operation, you need to guess what the point of this is. The point is to destroy every man, woman, and child and infant in Gaza. And they said about doing that. But it wasn't just Netanyahu who said that. It was a lot of different authorities in Israel. And in fact, as someone who's been keeping a list of this for a while, it might be worth reading them, just so everyone knows this isn't blood libel. It is true. On October 9th, so 3 days after the Hamas attacks, the defense minister of Israel, their own Pete Hegseth, described his plans for Gaza, not for Hamas, for the entire territory, for the over 2 million people who live there. And we're quoting, no electricity, no food will be allowed in. We are fighting human animals, not human beings, human animals. Well, the deputy mayor of Jerusalem that winter responded, not to say, whoa, settle down, defense minister. Calling your opponents animals is, of course, genocidal talk. No, the deputy mayor of Jerusalem thought he didn't go far enough. And he said this: they're not human animals. They're not human beings. They are subhuman. And then he said that the Palestinians of Gaza should be buried alive with bulldozers, which some ultimately apparently were. Ben Gvir, Matt Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition, carpet bomb. Cabinet ministers in Israel, supporters of Israel in the United States, making the same case in public from the very first day: kill indiscriminately, move them out. So most people don't wake up in the morning and decide to.
How do you defend it? How does the mainstream media stay silent on this? We're witnessing it. We're living through it. I understand Hamas should not have attacked. But when you look at the history of it, I'm not condoning it, but you kind of understand. But what Israel have done in retaliation, they were just waiting. They were hoping. It's almost like they wanted it to happen to give them their final excuse. Look what they're doing in Lebanon now. We're going to get into that later. Look what they're doing in Lebanon. You will be judged. On the day of judgment, you're going to have to answer. And they say they're doing it in the name of God, promised to us 2,000 years ago. Pathetic.